Let's go over it. Where are you?
I stand outside and guard the door. I don't let anybody go in or go out.
Mr. Brown.
Mr. Brown waits in the car. He's parked across the street. Till I give him the signal, then he pulls up in front of the store.
Mr. Blonde and Mr. Blue.
Crowd control. We handle customers and employees.
That girl's...
It's sitting right here on my...
Bruh. Myself and Mr. Pink.
You two take the manager in the back and make him give you the diamonds. We're there for those stones, period. Since no display cases are being f***ed with, no alarm should go off. We're out of there in 2 minutes, not 1 second longer.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Film Bros Podcast. My name is Isaiah Lucas, and I'm joined by my co-hosts.
Abraham.
And Nick.
How are you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good.
Doing good, too.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
Can't complain.
Stressful day. I hate getting tires.
Dang.
The joys of the normalcy of life.
Car dependency is killing me.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Dang.
I get it, dude. Part of me doesn't understand why tires are so expensive.
It's just
It's
rubber.
rubber,
but
bruh.
Yeah, because it's just rubber, you know. But then other parts of me, I'm like, I kind of get why they're expensive. Because if I bought a cheap one, I would be pretty scared driving.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and you could feel the difference, too.
yeah.
Dude, okay, my coworker, I was telling him about my car troubles, and I had known that my tires were bald for a long time, but I just didn't know how bald.
Mhm.
And apparently there's a way to check by using a penny.
Yeah, the penny test. You
Dude.
do, like, quarter of a tread or something like
I didn't have any tread. There's nowhere to put the penny.
that. Yeah.
And I told him that, and he looked at me and he goes,
Yeah.
yeah, there was no tread. It was crazy, like, when it barely sprinkles out. I don't
You're
know
sliding?
why. Yes. I don't know.
Dude,
Like,
you
on the
should-
freeway, I'm going,
Oh, no. Dude,
and my butthole's puckering the entire ride to the work.
you should have replaced those a long time ago if you were
I didn't know
sliding.
how bad it was.
Yeah. That's one of the
That's
things.
so wild.
So now, and you could tell that there's a difference. Like, I put the tires, I felt like I got a new car. It was insane. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, all that to say. Very stressed, but that's why we're here.
Yeah.
Decompress.
Well, I could tell you one thing.
Talk about,
If you made as much money as you did on this heist, flipping diamonds,
yeah.
you could afford all the tires you want.
Yeah,
For real.
the big buck tires.
Yeah, seriously. The movie we're going to be talking about today is a writer-director, Quentin Tarantino's first film. It came out in 1992, titled Reservoir Dogs. It is currently streaming on Netflix, and I don't think this wasn't the first Tarantino movie I ever watched. I think the first one I did ever watch was Pulp Fiction.
Really?
Yeah. And I remember actually
Oh my gosh.
the first time I watched Pulp Fiction, I think it was Halloween for some reason. And for some reason, I was home alone. Everyone else was out doing stuff. And I sat on the couch on my phone and pulled up the illegal movie streaming site that I used in college.
1, 2, 3 movies.
Yep. Yeah, and I pulled it up on my phone and watched it on my phone. All of Pulp Fiction.
Okay.
Really?
And I sat there on the couch and I was just like, man, this movie's crazy. This movie's good.
Uh-huh.
And that started my whole thing for trying to watch all of Tarantino's movies. And then I, went and saw all the ones that he wrote, all the ones that he's directed, and all that stuff. The only one that I haven't seen yet, I think, is The Hateful Eight.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm looking at his movies, and I'm trying to remember the first one.
I
Has to be
surprisingly.
Planet Terror.
Oh,
Came out in 2007. I
Yeah.
remember this as a kid.
That's the one with the lady with the gun for a leg?
Yes.
The
For s-
Grindhouse film?
yes. It's either that one or I don't know. Maybe The Hateful Eight.
Mm.
I remember Kill Bill when I was a little kid.
Oh,
See, I
okay.
didn't
But I
watch those ones. I don't even think I've seen Volume 2 yet.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't remember watching. I remember watching Kill Bill because of my dad when I was little.
Mm.
But I didn't know that was Quentin Tarantino. So
Kill Bill. Wow.
Okay. Yeah, I like Quentin. Like, he is a master storyteller,
Oh, yeah.
and he's got a style all his own. He's like very ultra violent, which is something I like. You know, he's into giving a spectacle to people,
Mhm.
and you know, you can tell that he's a director that just loves movies, and he loves to bring that feeling to the screen. And like, I think specifically with a film like Kill Bill, and how like over the top violent it is, with like how gory and bloody it is for no reason, and like the like acrobatics and all of the fight choreography and all this stuff. You know, it's just larger than life,
Mhm.
but it feels like it fits in his kind of universe that he's made, because kind of all of his films have sort of been super violent. You know?
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. I also think the same thing kind of too with like Inglourious Bastards.
That's the one I
Like-
want to watch.
Yeah, that's one I want to watch.
Isn't that another
Incredible.
one of the whole revisionist history type thing where?
Yeah, or like what if
Yeah,
this-
yeah.
Yeah.
Similar to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Right. Inglourious Bastards is
Is it great?
phenomenal.
Okay.
Phenomenal. Like Christopher Waltz, the villain in this movie, he's on the same level of, like, you know how you watch The Dark Knight for Heath Ledger.
Mm-hmm.
You watch Inglourious Bastards for Christopher Waltz and his performance, and it's a great movie. I would highly recommend.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he's one of the directors that he just has no misses.
No stinkers.
Yeah, and I think he's only wanting to direct like 8 or 9 movies or something like that, and then call it quits,
Oh wow.
and then just do like books afterwards or something like that. Because I think he did a book for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood that's like an even bigger expansion on the movie, where like he writes like even more backstory for characters and stuff like that, and all that stuff.
Yeah,
but
I can see how writing like a screenplay could transition easily into a whole like novel.
yeah,
I could see where he'd want to go with that. It's crazy. I remember watching this Reservoir Dogs first with you
mm-hmm.
in Alexa's room. I was sitting on the couch. We watched it.
That's what I feel like I've watched.
Were
it.
you there with us?
That's what I'm saying. I feel like I've seen this movie before.
It's weird because I remember watching it and I enjoyed my time with it, but I thought to myself, yeah, that's his first movie for sure. Like, I really felt like a heavy, yeah, this is his first one. You could tell it's got a little bit of rough edges here or there. But I don't know what I was talking about because I enjoyed it way more now.
Oh, really?
And now when I think about the memories I had from the movie when I watched it with you, I'm like putting scenes in it that didn't exist or trying to mix movies with it.
Okay.
So I don't know what I was doing back then, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I found a lot to really enjoy. Yeah, it was good. It was great.
Yeah, it's a fun movie too. Like it's a movie where you can just sit there for an hour and a half and just be like, who's the rat? The
Yeah.
whole time.
Mhm.
And it keeps you on the edge of your seat if you've never seen it before. It's rewarding if you are watching it on a rewatch. And like it's one of those things where it's like now become iconic. Like
Mhm.
people all over the internet talk about just the soundtrack of this film and just how good the soundtrack is.
Yeah.
And like I see tons of, you know, like archive pages on Instagram and stuff post that shot of all of them walking with the black and white suits, you know, and like all the Ray-Bans and people wearing cowboy boots with suits and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And even like the whole torture dance scene with Michael Madsen and Steve Buscemi talking about why he doesn't tip, you know, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's great. And like I had said, this is his directorial debut. This is where like he really came in on his own.
Mhm.
Like he immediately came in with the style. He knew that he wanted like super dialogue heavy and that he wanted his characters to feel super real and lived in. And that's just something he's carried on throughout all his movies, which I really enjoy.
Yeah. It's crazy to me that this is his first movie.
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
first movie. I'm really interested to hear about the budget
Yeah.
because I know that it was somewhat low.
It was incredibly small for its time.
But when we get there, I mean, I'm feeling like I'm gonna be pretty blown away by
Yeah.
just what they had to work with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, I don't blame him for being like,
Yeah, I think I've heard this fact kind of about it. I have it written down, I think, but I'll kind of mention it a little bit beforehand just because we're talking about the budget. The budget was like so small that like every actor in this movie wore their own actual clothing. Like
Did they really?
they had
That's
no
kind of crazy.
they had no wardrobe department. So like
bring your own.
yeah, so like they all brought their own like okay, you got your own black jacket, a white shirt, tie. Like Steve Buscemi, he doesn't even wear like slacks. He wears black jeans.
Does he really?
Yeah, and like black dress shoes. Michael Madsen's character is wearing like black slacks with cowboy boots because he didn't have dress shoes. You know, like even like the Cadillac, the green car, like that's Michael Madsen's car
Really?
that they used for the movie. Like there's just tons of stuff in here where like they either had to get really creative to like stretch the little budget that they did have to make the movie that they wanted to, and that, you know, made them look towards, you know, bringing their own stuff or, you know, shooting things in certain ways where, you know, you could try to make it look sort of convincing or something like that.
Right.
So,
That's interesting.
yeah. I think another one even is like Nice Guy Eddie, Chris Penn, Sean Penn's brother. That windbreaker that he's wearing, I think, is famously his own.
Is
as
it
well.
really?
Yeah, and like he just wore it on set, and you know it kind of fit with his character.
Yeah, it fits it well. This is
Yeah.
like that blue one.
Yeah.
He reminds me a lot of Jonah Hill for some reason.
He does.
Okay.
I don't know why. It reminds me of, you know what it reminds me of? Jonah Hill, only because in Megamind, the fool in Megamind looks like how he looks in real life.
Okay, yeah, the hair and everything.
Do you kind of see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what
And
you're
Jonah Hill voices that fool.
Yeah.
Anyways.
All right. Well, we'll dive into that category a little bit later into the episode.
Yeah.
Before we start with our categories, I want to mention if you're listening to us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, like the videos, and comment as well. Let us know what you guys are thinking. Let us know what your guys' favorite scenes are, stuff like that, what you're liking about the episodes, what you're not liking. If you're listening on the audio platforms, also hit us up with a rate and review. Let us know what you're thinking. We want to make the show the best that it can possibly be. And as far as we know, we're doing an okay job, but maybe you know something we don't, or maybe you can point something out to, you know, help try to make the show better. We're open to constructive criticism and stuff like that. And we can't see our own flaws because we're blinded by by our own, you know, our own selves, and it usually takes other people to try to point that stuff out for us. So if you guys are seeing something or you just want to get into the conversation, let us know either through comments or rate and reviews. But yeah, as always, I'll give you a little synopsis of the film here. It is streaming on Netflix, like I had mentioned, and this is a heist movie. But it's sort of like a deconstruction on what heist movies are. So, like, typically...
It's like a heist with no heist, pretty
right,
much.
exactly. It's a heist, but you don't get to see it.
Yeah.
And it's you really only see the setup of the heist and the aftermath. And Quentin does that for specific reasons to really draw you into, you know, as why the aftermath is such a big thing. And, you know, he really gives room for characters to breathe and all that stuff. So that way people aren't focused on just this huge spectacle of seeing, you know, the robbery take place and stuff like that. But, yeah, we essentially follow, like, I think 5 or 6 guys, and they all get together to rob this diamond wholesaler in Los Angeles. And basically the plan is to go in there, steal these diamonds, come back to this rendezvous point, and then give those diamonds to their boss, who then he will sell and then give them each a cut of the diamonds. But as you could probably guess, heist goes horribly wrong. There's talks of somebody potentially being a rat in the group and setting them up. And whenever that heist goes wrong, everybody meets back at the rendezvous point and they decide who is the rat and try to figure out ultimately who set them up, if anybody. So yeah, if that intrigues you or if you have already watched the movie, continue listening. We're going to be heavy on the spoilers here because this is a big movie where there are just tons of reveals after reveal after reveal where you know slowly learn things over time as you watch it. So if you care about spoilers or if you you know you want to avoid that stuff, or if you don't care, continue listening. It's up to you. You make your own decisions. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So without further ado, we'll start off with our first favorite scene. I'll go ahead and start us off because I love the intro to this movie.
How could you not? Honestly.
To me, the intro of this movie is iconic. Like, first off, I gotta say, like, how big are Tarantino's balls to start his movie talking about how Madonna's Like a Virgin is about a woman who like who like has just had intercourse with a guy whose Johnson was too big. like that's how he starts his movie off.
It's just,
Like that's such a crazy way to start a movie.
it is just a bunch of guys sitting around a diner table drinking coffee talking about that.
Talking about Madonna's Like a Virgin.
Yeah, it is wild.
And this is like one thing that I can like only contribute to Tarantino, where he just has these like crazy theories and crazy thoughts. Like I also think of another movie he's in where he talks about how this is where this predominant theory kind of came
Top
from,
Gun?
where Top Gun
Oh, yeah.
was all about Iceman and Maverick being gay. And like how like, you know, at the end where he's like, you could be my wingman anytime, and you know, all this stuff, right? Like he came up with that theory and it was put onto film, and like now it's a big theory and people like push this theory all over the place. And so like now anytime I hear the song Like a Virgin,
You think of this movie?
I think of this movie and I think about how Tarantino planted this theory in my mind where this is potentially what the song's about. You know? But yeah, essentially the scene starts off with, you know, opening credits, and then we get these like incredible close-up shots of just everybody sitting around this diner table, and they're just drinking coffee, eating breakfast with one another, and the camera is just like going around the table, showing us each and every person that's sitting there, and they're having this conversation with each other about what this song is really about. And on like when you talk about it this way, it really seems like it's not that great. like
It's the same. I feel like we had the same issue talking about Pulp Fiction when we were talking about the Royale with cheese.
yeah.
Because it's not. It's not. It's like really hard to just like, oh, they talked about this and it's really interesting.
Yeah.
But it is in the moment when you watch it. You're like, oh, that's sick. But like rehearsing it is not.
Yeah.
It's all because it's in the moment.
Right,
Feeling
exactly.
incredibly authentic to who they are as characters.
Exactly. And I think that that's just one of the things I really love about the intro is just that there's just such great dialogue.
Yeah.
And there is such good writing from the jump where you feel these characters are just already been lived in. And like when I'm listening to Mr. White talk and get defensive about Mr. Pink not tipping and being like, these women work hard jobs.
They bust their balls.
He's like, they bust their balls over here. One out of every 10 women in America who doesn't have a college degree relies on waitressing, and that involves their tips. That's how they pay their bills and all this stuff, you know? And like it just feels like these people are just so real, and I just appreciate it for that aspect. Yeah, also going into that, the whole conversation eventually divulges into paying for the bill. And the boss is, you know, said that I'm going to pay for everybody's meal. Because I'm paying, everybody throw in $1 for the tip. So everyone obliges except Mr. Pink, who's played by Steve Buscemi, masterfully, might I add. And Steve Buscemi just kind of sits there for a minute, and then everyone is kind of sitting there staring at him, and he goes, hey, come on, quit being cheap. Like, throw in $1. And he goes, I don't tip. And everyone's like, what? What do you mean you don't tip? And he just goes, I don't tip. I just don't do it. And then, you know, that gets into this whole conversation about why I don't tip.
All the dudes are grilling him.
Yeah, and they're like grilling him, telling him like these people make crap. They rely on your tips to feed their children and put roofs over their heads and stuff. And he's just not caring. And he's like, you see this?
That's the
This is the world's smallest violin playing for all the waitresses out there. Like, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, he just gives this incredible story as to why he doesn't tip, because society tells him to. He just, you know, they make minimum wage, and, you know, if they want a better job, you know, if they want to make more money, then they should go get a better job, you know, or they should learn how to type or something like that, because I'm not going to play this game where, you know, this certain job is, you know, established as worthy for tipping, but when you go to McDonald's or something like that, you don't feel the need to tip them, but they're serving you food. You know,
and one of the guys is like, he convinced me, give him my $1 back.
Yeah. I love this whole scene of just watching these guys just feel incredibly real. And like this feels like a conversation that you would have with your boys.
Seriously, you either are Mr. Pink or you know a Mr. Pink.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Like it's I feel like everybody has talked about tipping, especially in the United States culture of, everyone gets 15-20% after your meal.
Exactly.
And start to question.
Yeah, and like even like the snide comments from some of the guys where they're like, "Well, what's a tip for you?" Like he's like,
Take you to the back.
Yeah, take you to the back. And,
he's like, I'll only tip if they do something special.
Yeah.
He's like, oh yeah, what's so special? I'll take you to the back and do some DD.
Yeah, exactly. And then he was like, no, like, if I'm a waitress or if I'm a customer, I have my coffee filled up 3 times, I want it filled up 6.
Yeah, it's like,
And like, he's going on about how he only tips if it's like exceptional service, and this lady only filled his coffee up 3 times, and
he wants 6.
Yeah, and all this other stuff, but eventually that leads into like the opening credits where we get the reveal for like who's playing who.
Yeah.
And I just love this shot.
Doesn't it feel like for some reason it feels like after you get through the whole intro,
It feels like it's the ending.
yeah, it feels like its own little short story.
No, I thought it was. I was watching this, and to me, it was a big. This was like a big bro moment for me because of the tipping part. And seeing this and then seeing the intro, I was like, this feels like it could be the ending.
Right?
And I was so confused that I was like, whoa, what the heck? Like, it just seemed like it was the ending.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things I love about this movie as well as Pulp Fiction is it starts with that non-linear storytelling to where you got to kind of piece together the events and how they actually went down. But yeah, you were gonna say something?
I was just saying it reminds me of the idea that Whiplash had, where it's like it's a very small scene of the movie that gets like built into a bigger movie, but it's just like just that little bit is perfect enough for a very short story.
Yeah,
it feels like that's how this was set up, where it's just like these guys talking, and it's so riveting just watching them talk that once you get these, it almost feels like credits.
Yeah,
you feel satisfied enough to be like, I
yeah,
got
I
just
felt
enough of their
satisfied.
character to know who they are,
yeah,
and if that was it, that's a great short story.
yeah. Seriously,
I was okay with it.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic.
yeah. But then that goes into this iconic scene of them walking out the parking lot, and they're walking down the parking lot. It's in this slow mo. You see them, Ray-Bans on, all black coat, white shirt, black tie. Everyone's just walking to the car, to this song called "Little Green Bag" by John Baker, I think is his name, and even this, like, I love this, where like they're walking and this song is playing, and you hear just looking for some happiness, but like it's perfect. And like anytime I see this, I'm like, if someone was to ask me like, what's Tarantino like, I would show them that and be like, you can expect him to play some like 60s 70s soul or pop music, and you can expect tons of violence, because literally the next scene is Mr.
Tim
Orange
Roth,
bloody in the back of a white car, just he got me, Larry, I'm dying. Like all
I'm
this
scared.
And it's just perfect. But maybe I like this scene more too, because this song that plays here played as I drove to my wedding.
Oh, really?
So I was driving to my wedding, and as I'm driving, I plug my phone in, and it shuffles on a playlist I had on at the time. And the song that came on as I got on the freeway was that song. So I'm driving over, and I hear, "Looking back on the track for a little green bag," and I was like, I'm in a suit. I got my sunglasses on. I feel great. This is awesome. Like, so anytime I hear that song now, I think about driving to my wedding. Like, so yeah. I mean, even too, like, talk about the soundtrack a little bit. That song, "Stuck in the Middle with You."
Yeah, that song is so
like,
catchy.
I had that song play at my wedding.
Did you really?
Yeah, like I had everyone dance to that song on the dance floor. Like, it's just, this movie's been influential to me, I guess. But yeah, I kind of lump in that whole intro with Mr. Orange getting to the warehouse.
Yeah, this whole
Oh,
scene.
dang, really?
Yeah, so like that whole,
It's kind of like the whole drive.
yeah, the whole drive where like it's a hard cut to this guy just being like, "Oh God, I got shot," and there's just blood everywhere. He's just screaming for his life, and like pleading, really, like just telling this guy, Mr. White, Harvey Keitel, to just drop him off on the side of the road, and he'll call an ambulance and all this stuff. And Harvey Kettle is just not letting him happen. He's holding his hand and is just like, we're going to get you a doctor. We just need to get back to the rendezvous and it'll all be fine. We just need to do it. It'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Mr. Orange is just like, I'm dying. I think I'm going to die.
All this blood, I'm scared.
Yeah. And you know, I love the lines that Harvey Kettle delivers where he's just like, you got a degree in medicine? Are you a doctor?
Yeah.
That's one of my
And
favorite
he's like,
quotes.
no. And he's like, okay, so you don't know what the hell you're talking about then, do you? You're going to be okay. And, you know, so starts like, he's like, say it. Say you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You're going to be okay. And I just love it. Him just being like, say the words, yelling at him. And then he's just kind of giving up. He's like, I'm okay, Larry. And they like finally get in the warehouse. He lays him down, and
Gosh.
you know he's just starts begging for his life. He's like, the situation is, I'm shot in the belly. I'm gonna die of my wound and all this blood loss if I don't get to a hospital or see a doctor soon.
Mm-hmm.
Like, please, just take me to a hospital. Drop me off there. Like, I won't even tell them. I won't tell them anything about how it happened or anything like that or about you. Nothing. And he's like, I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do it. I can't risk going to jail. And they have this whole argument with one another about whether or not, like, should I really take this guy and, you know, do the right thing? Because if I really trust this guy and if I really care about him, I want him to live.
Yeah.
But do I do what's in the best interest for me as well and stay out of jail and wait for, you know, whoever it is to come back so that way they can try to save this guy?
Yeah. He's really torn because I think on one hand he really feels guilty because he throughout the whole film he's saying like, I'm the one who got him shot.
Yeah.
I'm like accountable to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And you see like throughout the movie they're close.
Yeah.
They're not just like,
Yeah. Mr. White is like almost loyal to a fault.
yeah, seriously.
Like he's just he's like the old school criminal where like he finds a guy he likes
and he's loyal.
and he's just loyal
Mhm.
like until like that guy stabs him in the back, you know. And that's just his character, which
Yeah.
I enjoy.
So he's battling between like, I really want to save this guy. I'm consoling him throughout the entire drive here.
Yeah, straight up like brushing his hair back and like telling him like you're gonna be fine.
Yeah,
You're gonna
kinda
be a
like
doctor.
almost
holding
like
his
carrying
hand.
him, like he's like
It almost looks like a father-son relationship.
Yeah.
literally, almost like a father-son relationship. I didn't
Yeah.
want to say it like that, but
Mhm.
It kind of is. I mean, even the way he kind of sticks his neck out for him at the end too.
Mhm.
It really feels that way.
Yeah, I'd also
It's compelling.
wrote down like it's really interesting on a rewatch. Like, it sucks knowing why Mr. Orange wanted to go to a hospital so bad, because he's like for real terrified that he's about to die because this is his job. Like,
Mhm.
we come to find out that Mr. Orange is the rat. He's an undercover cop that got hired for this job.
Blew my freaking mind.
And like whenever you see him like really start pleading for his life and telling him just please drop me off at a hospital, like, you can really see the fear
Yeah.
come out in this guy's eyes. But on a first watch, you're kind of like, oh man, well, this guy's just scared to die. You know, he's just a scared crook.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, this guy's like, no, like
I don't want to die with
I
these
don't want to die
criminals.
alongside these guys. Like, I
Yeah.
need to get out of here and you know, serve my purpose that I was trying to do in the first place. Right?
Yeah, that's tough.
It's tough. But yeah, after that whole, you know, scene happens, Mr. Pink eventually comes in.
I freaking love Mr. Pink.
Yeah, and he comes in, and he's like the only professional.
He's the only sane one there.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous how much sense he's making,
Yeah.
and yet nobody listens,
Yeah.
dude. Oh, it's
Yeah,
it's
he's like
frustrating.
the only professional criminal
Yeah.
that comes in and is just like, don't tell me your real name. You're Mr. White. He's Mr. Orange. I'm Mr. Pink. I don't want to know your real name.
Yeah.
You know, the only person I can trust in this scenario right now is me, because I think we got a rat.
Yeah.
And
That's
like,
what I'm saying. He also brings the exposition of the story. He's the
Mhm.
one that says, like, we were there. You saw how crazy Mr. Blonde was. He went psychopath and started killing people.
Yeah.
And that's when it went down. And then within the second,
Within the second he started shooting people, cops were there immediately.
immediately. So he's like, there's no way that they would have responded. The average time is 4 minutes, and they were there within the minute.
Yeah.
So he immediately got a sniff that something was wrong.
Yeah.
And he's overlaying that to us as the audience.
Yeah.
And he's saying, like, I got the diamonds. I hid them. I didn't want to come here because there's a rat, and this
Yeah.
place could be, like, a police freaking headquarters right now.
Yeah.
So we should get out of here.
Yep.
And he's just super convincing as a crook, honestly.
Yeah, seriously.
And nobody's listening to him, especially not Mr. White.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. White, like we'd said, is that guy who's loyal to a fault, where he's just not going to listen to reason. He's going to make sure that this guy is okay.
Right.
And, if that jeopardizes him, getting either paid out on this job or potentially like going to jail,
True.
like it's going to kind of happen because he wants to take care of him,
Yeah. And another thing I like about this movie, but this scene in particular, is that, we get taken away from Mr. Orange, and he's not moving. And he looks to be dead, but he goes on. Mr. White confirms that he's still alive, that he's, I think, just passed out from the pain.
Yeah.
But, like, the tension is still there when they go away from him, that it's like, he's still on the floor bleeding out, dying.
Yeah.
Is he going to be okay?
Yeah.
So when we get these really still and calm scenes where they're in, like, it's kind of like these one-take-ish style scenes where they're in the bathroom, lighting the cigarettes, talking to each other, kind of calming down, putting the water on their face.
Yeah.
There's still this underlying tension of, like, what happened? Is he dying over there still? Like, it could be easily construed as boring and slow. But when you really take into account the whole situation as a whole, I'm sitting there like,
or like
invested still, thinking about all the questions.
Yeah.
Who's Mr. Brown? Where's Mr. Blue? Did he really die?
Yeah.
Who is this Mr. Blonde? What the
Yeah.
heck happened there? Why did he go psychopath?
Yeah, even so too. Like when you would think a situation or a scene like that would be a little boring, Tarantino finds a way to inject some sort of scene. Like I'm thinking of whenever he says like, "How'd you get out of there?" and he says, "What do you think? I shot my way out."
And
then immediately you see him running and shooting at the police,
Perfect.
and he's got the bag and he's running, jacks that car.
GTA.
Dude, that's
freaking,
such. I laughed so hard.
He yanks that lady out.
Dude, he yanks the lady out, but he literally gets smacked by that car, dude.
Yeah.
And like literally, like
He
GTA, you get right back up, and you're like, "All right, I'm taking your car, fool." Yanks the lady out and gets in.
Yep.
Like,
It's straight
I
GTA.
lost it
Yeah.
when I saw that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was my first bro moment, was him yanking that lady out of the
So
car.
funny.
dude. But yeah, he finds a way to make situations like this that would seem rather boring.
Yeah.
There might start to feel like there's a little bit of a drag in the story, and then boom, something happens to where you are immediately back in the action, and you're able to piece together what happened.
Yeah.
This guy shot his way out. Here's the way he got out. Now he's back here, and we need to find out exactly how we're going to take care of Mr. Orange now.
Yeah. The brunt of the story is this rendezvous point in this like kind of plain, boring, like barn-ish
Yeah.
area, like factory kind of deal. But then you get drawn out. You get these whole like, there's a chase here, there's a shoot here, there's a cop chase here, and
Yeah.
it's all like just incredibly simple, but still very riveting.
Yeah, and I think I was almost thinking a little bit of 12 Angry Men, in the sense that like when 12 Angry Men takes place, it all
like
almost
one
takes
room.
place in that deliberation room.
Right.
The same can kind of be said for this movie. A huge majority of this movie takes place at that warehouse. And then you get scenes where you're out of it or something like that. So that way you can get a little bit of backstory.
Right.
Like I'm thinking of the backstory behind Mr. Orange, where, we get the commode story and him meeting up with his chief at the diner and all
Right.
that stuff. Or same can be said whenever you're getting backstory on Mr. White, whenever he's in Joe's office, and other things like that. But it all eventually always comes back to that warehouse.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's why the next thing I want to bring up is the stuck in the middle with you. That's how I labeled it scene. And I'll give a little context, but I think it's the like the shocking nature of it, and then the removal of it when he goes outside, and then you hear just like kids in the background. It's just like a normal day, and then you go back into the music comes back in, and it's like,
in.
please, it's like
yeah.
perfect, right?
Yeah, it is.
And it's that like juxtaposition I think was perfect, and it's the removal of this very innocent looking warehouse.
Yeah, everything on the outside looks like it's totally fine. It's just a guy walking to his car. Little do you know, he's getting gasoline so that way he can pour it all over this guy in his fresh wound.
Yes, this
Yeah.
is the psychopath, Mr. Blonde. How did you
Yeah.
feel about Mr. Blonde?
Mr. Blonde.
Did you
Vic
think he was the
Vega.
rat at all?
No,
Not for a second.
I
You
didn't
didn't think
know.
so?
Not for a second.
Here's
With the
the
way this
thing.
guy acts, dude. No.
He was kind of sus though at the
I don't-
beginning.
Oh, like when
He
he's
said,
standing
he said,
there.
"Why don't you come to my car? I got
Oh.
something to show you." I was
Yeah.
like, "Dude, they're gonna walk outside. There's be police everywhere."
Oh.
I couldn't figure out who the rat was in general.
Mm.
Because I mean, Tarantino wrote it perfectly, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then it was when before we recorded, he had mentioned something about knowing who it was, and I was like, that makes
Yeah.
sense
There's a
now.
little bit of foreshadowing
Mhm.
And
in the beginning.
hearing that made me think more about it, and I was like, dude, that does make sense. But I couldn't figure out who the rat was.
You just thought he was a complete psychopath.
I thought he was someone that like was mentally ill, bruh.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, he's a psychopath for sure.
Absolutely, the way he
Like,
comes
he
in there
straight
and
up
he's
kills
just
for fun.
Yeah.
And he even tells the cop, like, I get pleasure out of killing a cop.
he said, "You can
Like-
tell me
like
the
any-
truth.
You can
You
tell
can
me
tell
whatever
me-
you want. Like,
You're still getting tortured."
yeah. Yeah.
I was like, dude, this guy is wild.
Yeah. I even think too, like, that scene, the little like short montage clip of them beating the cop up before to like that soul music. I love it for some reason. Like, you know, like this is whenever Mr. Blonde gets introduced, where Mr. Pink and Mr. White got their guns drawn at one
You're
another.
the rat. Oh, you're the rat.
Yeah, and then Vic Vega, Mr. Blonde, is sitting there in the corner sipping on a soda,
Mhm.
and you know they're like, "Oh, Mr. Blonde, it's you. Like, how long have you been here?" And he's like, I think he introduces where he's like, "You kids should stop playing so rough. Somebody's gonna get hurt, and they're gonna start crying." And then, you know, they start saying like, "Where were you? You know, we've been waiting for you." And then he eventually says like, you know, "I got something for you guys." Or no, he tries to pick a fight because he has one of my favorite quotes where he says, "Are you gonna bark all day, little doggy, or are you gonna bite?"
Mhm. To Mr. White.
Yeah, and then they get in each other's face. They're like,
What did you just? He said, "I didn't hear that. I'm gonna let you say it one more time. What'd you say?"
yeah. He does it again.
That's a bar right there, bro.
Yeah, and he does it again, and then they start getting in each other's face. Mr. Pink is like, what's happening, dude? Am I the only professional here? You guys acting like kids at a playground. Like, what the heck's going on? And then, you know, Mr. Blonde is kind of like, okay, yeah, you know, whatever. Let me go get something out of the back here. I got something to show you.
Yeah.
And, like, this is where we get that iconic trunk shot that, like, Tarantino's so famous for, where he opens up the trunk, the camera's looking at the guys, looking down. So it looks like we're the cop.
Mm-hmm.
And then it looks down. They got this cop hog-tied and duct-taped. They bring him out into the warehouse, beat the crap out of him to this, like, it almost feels like a James Brown song. And, like, while they're beating him up and trying to get him to talk and all this stuff, eventually they end up leaving Mr. Pink and Mr. White and I think Nice Guy Eddie.
Yeah, Nice Guy Eddie comes and he's kind of like, he runs the place a little bit.
He's Joe's son.
He's like, this. You guys can punch him all you want. He's gonna.
Yeah.
I forget what he says.
He
but
says something.
Like,
He's like, if you punch this guy hard enough, he'll tell you if he's wearing ladies' underwear.
Yeah,
Like,
so it's like, there's no point.
Yeah.
You guys are idiots.
yeah.
Let's go and get the money, move the cars before Joe gets here because he's gonna be pissed.
Yeah.
So that's why they leave.
Yeah.
But I even like it too. There's like small characteristics where Mr. Pink goes to punch the cop and he's like, oh.
Yeah.
he's not very aggressive or intimidating at all.
Yeah. Yeah, but eventually Nice Guy Eddie, Mr. Pink, and Mr. White all leave to go get the diamonds that he stashed. And that leaves Mr. Blonde, Mr. Orange, and this hostage cop alone.
At last.
Right. And this picks up with your favorite scene, which is also mine as well. But
Yeah, he goes up. He goes that whole iconic scene. He's like, I'm not going to bullcrap you. You're getting tortured.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what. You want it to be fast, but it's going to be slow.
Yeah.
And he goes on. He's putting music on. And then he goes up and he's like, slashes him with his little knife.
Yeah.
And then he goes and he cuts his ear off.
Yeah, dude. Hacks
Mike
that thing off.
Tyson.
I know, I like it too because it's another scene where it's not one take, but it's very close to being one take.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, as he's cutting his ear off, the camera
kinda-
pans to the side.
Yeah, and all you can hear is just the screams. Yeah, and then whenever it comes back, you know, he kind of hops off of him.
Yeah.
I even love too. This is like, this
Doesn't
is
he, like,
real
try to talk
psychopath
into it?
behavior, dude. Where he straight up grabs it. And he goes, "Oh, can you hear that?" And then he kind of laughs and throws it. You hear it plop on the ground. It's like, bro, this guy is messed up.
Absolute madman. Absolute madman.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. And just the whole, like, I even love, too, like, when he's, like, dancing and kind of menacing towards the guy to a song, like, Stuck in the Middle with You, where it's kind of, like, happy, kind of like Bob Dylan-esque is what the radio host calls it. And, like, the whole time he's, like, singing and doing these dances and, like, coming back and slashing him and slicing him and all this stuff. And, yeah, that whole scene is ingrained in my mind.
He's dancing all the way out, and he goes out, leaves his car. The music stops.
Yeah, as he closes that warehouse door, music
stops.
like is in the world. So like because it's playing in the warehouse, you don't hear it outside. Goes out, gets the jerry can, comes back in. Music comes back in right as soon as he opens the door and like starts pouring gasoline all over this guy.
Dude, not even pouring him, like freaking dousing him.
Yeah,
it's like it's kind of hard to watch because he's like. The dude's just screaming. He's pouring gas like all over his mouth.
And like his fresh wound, which is like just gotta burn.
It's gotta
like,
suck.
Yeah, and this guy is just screaming for his life.
Biggest bro moment comes out of nowhere too.
Yeah, and you know eventually he's just kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna light you on fire.
Yeah, he's like leading. He has a path of gas.
And the cop is like, please, I
got a kid.
I have kids. Like you can't do this. I have children. I got to make it back to them somehow. And he's just kind of like, sucks, sorry. And, you know, right as he's about to do it, all of a sudden you just see 3 shots, boom, 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 to the chest. Mm-hmm. And, you know, a camera pans over and you see Mr. Orange lying in a pool of blood, just and, you know, empties a couple more out on him as he's on the ground.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Absolute crazy. I totally forgot he was there.
Yeah.
Like, I thought he was dead.
Yeah, Mr. Orange, you don't see him.
You don't, and literally like how you guys both said, he's literally just there in a pool of blood. Mm-hmm. Like, literally not doing anything, and you're not going to think of him, oh, he's half dead. That's what you're going to think. He's asleep. He's half dead from all the pain. Like, let him recover.
Yeah.
I'm not going to think he's someone who's bleeding going to get up and shoot me.
Yeah, or let alone him be a cop.
Yeah, because he straight up reveals after he shot the guy. He asks the cop, what's his name? He's like, Marvin Nash. Yeah. And he says, I'm a cop, Marvin. Yeah, and then Marvin even says, I know. We met. Like, we've met each other.
Isn't that crazy that he doesn't rat him out, though?
Yeah.
That's a good.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. For all that he's been through, too. Freaking crazy.
Yeah, and then even a bigger bro moment is when we find out Mr. Orange tells the guy, I've got cops a block away from here.
But they won't come.
And no, he says they'll come at any moment, but they're not going to come until we get Joe in this building.
Yeah. So he's like, so I'm just going to lay here and bleed.
So we need to lay here and wait until Joe gets here. And that guy gets pissed, and he's like, you're telling me there's backup a week ago, like a block away, and they could come over here and get these guys? Do it. This guy cut my ear off. I'm deformed.
Like, I'm dying.
Yeah, and he goes, I'm dying over here. Like, just screaming at each other.
Yes. Yeah. It's great. It's fantastic.
Anything for the mission, bro.
I love it. But, yeah, it's just an incredible scene from start to finish. Mm-hmm. Love it. My next favorite scene is watching Mr. Orange, his backstory.
Commode's story?
Yeah, and the rehearsal for his story. So throughout the movie, we get backstories for Mr. White, Mr. Blonde. I don't think we get one for Mr. Pink.
No, we don't get one for Mr. Pink.
No, just Mr. Orange, Mr. White for sure, and Mr. Blonde.
And Mr. Blonde. Yeah. So, we get this backstory for Mr. Orange. We find out he's an undercover cop, and then we get to understand how he got the job, and how he's getting in with these guys and all this stuff. And he meets his, I'm assuming, chief or captain or something like that at a diner, who tells him, all right, you're in with these people. Like, now you need to come up with a commode story. And he's like, what is that? And he eventually, like, gives him a script and tells him, like, you've got to be able to put this story together that, like, is a funny drug bust type story or something like that. Something that's going to show these guys that you have, like, done crime and all this stuff. You are a criminal, but it's got some sort of funny ending or something like that, so that way these guys will look at you in a different light, because if you don't, they're not going to trust you. You got to give them some sort of story. And so he basically gives them this whole plan about how you need to write a story, a commode story, where you go into a bathroom and you got drugs on you and the cops are looking for you or something like that. And he's like, but you need to like know this story inside and out. Like you need to memorize every page of the script. You got to know if that bathroom has stalls in it, and if those stalls got doors. Does it have urinals? Does the bathroom have a paper towel dispenser for you to dry your hands, or does it got a power dryer, a blower? Did the water only have hot water, or was it cold and hot? The pink soap, like did it have like the liquid soap or that pink granulated soap that you used whenever you were in high school? You know, just going into this just incredible amount of detail as to how much you should know about this made up story. And I just like watching him learn the story over time. Like he starts in his apartment and he kind of like,
what was the line? What was the line?
Yeah, and he's kind of like trying to remember it, and he's losing it, and he keeps looking back at the pages and stuff. And then, you know, eventually goes to rehearse it in some park in front of the chief, and the guy's like, okay, yeah, you're getting it. This is good. And then eventually it gets to a point where he's in a bar in front of Joe, Nice Guy Eddie,
all of them,
and Mr. White, and he's rehearsing this story and telling them this story. And by the time he's doing this, he's saying it like it really happened.
Yeah, and they're bringing up questions, and he's answering them on the fly.
Right. Like one of the questions I think he says is like, I brought like this huge thing of weed through the train station for this guy to pick up. And Nice Guy Eddie's like, why would you bring it to a train station? And he was like, oh, that's just, you know, where the guy happened to meet me at the time. You know, he's coming from this place and yada, yada,
needed
yada.
it quick, yeah.
All this stuff. We needed it quick, right? And he's like, so before we decided to get on the train, I decided I got to go to the bathroom real quick. And like right here is where we get like a real life enactment of like what the story is.
Yeah.
So like he kind of like his character actually walks into like this like all white bathroom, and there are
The
five cops just standing,
just staring at him.
Yeah, staring at the sink, and they're like staring right at him. There's a German Shepherd on the leash,
smelling it,
looking right at him. And you know the story goes on. He's like, I swear the dog can smell me from a mile away. All the cops, they're looking at me. They know, you know, and all this stuff. And he's like, I decided, you know, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, and I walk over to wash my hands. And while he's telling the story in real time to the people, he's also like in the bathroom still looking at the cops and saying the story like right to them, and also telling it to us, the audience, as well.
Yeah.
I just thought it was just a super cool way to show us how he's still telling the story, but also he's made it so convincing to where we as the audience can also see what he is saying.
Yeah.
You know,
He's like, he believes it so much that he's there, able to.
Right. And I just thought it was just a really cool way for them to show us just how much this guy is in this. And yeah, that was just a really cool way to show us the story.
Definitely agree. Yeah,
but from there, love the ending.
Yeah, that's the last scene I got is the ending.
Yeah, you want to take it?
Sure, yeah. This scene is, it's pretty much right after this where he's laying on the floor. They finally get back, and they see Mr. Blonde dead. And Eddie's like, well, what the heck happened here? And, you know, as he's on the floor, he kind of makes up this whole, like, oh, he was going to kill all of us and take the diamonds and run for himself kind of deal, right?
Right.
And Eddie is like, you're telling me the guy who did 4 years for us, who took no bribes, who did nothing but be loyal to us, and we were being loyal to him back. You're telling me that same guy was just going to kill us all at the very end of this? And he's like, tell me what really happened.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's kind of onto his BS. And then Joe comes in, and he's like, this mother is an FBI agent. He's the rat.
Yeah.
And then Mr. White is like, no,
Yeah.
you got her all wrong.
Yeah.
Defending Mr. Orange.
Yeah, he's like, I know this kid.
I
he
know
is not
him.
a rat.
He is not a rat. You got it wrong. And he says, and Joe pulls a gun on him and is going to kill him. And he goes, if you pull that gun on him, I'm going to have to shoot you.
Yeah.
And then there's this like
Mexican standoff.
Yeah, Mexican standoff. Everyone's got their guns pointed at everyone. And they're like,
It's like that Office meme.
yeah, he's like, if you shoot him, I'm going to shoot you. He's going to shoot me. Everyone's
Yeah.
going to die.
Yep.
Pretty much. And no one's backing down. As much as they want to try, nobody is backing down.
Yep.
And I can't remember. They get to the scene where they just shoot each other.
Yeah, it eventually gets to a point where they're just so much tension is building up, and they eventually like yell where they like, quit pointing that freaking gun at me, and then they just pow pow pow, and they all get shot.
They all get shot.
They all die.
And it's crazy.
All of them die except Mr. Pink.
True. Yeah, man, he's under.
Yeah,
He's
Mr.
under
Pink
this.
is under this little ramp thing.
It makes me laugh so hard when you
Yeah.
see him like Peek his head
Scurry
up.
That's what it
out.
That's what Steve Buscemi reminds me of, though, of a little scary chihuahua. Like his eyes, his face. That's what. So seeing him when he's under that thing just makes perfect sense for
Yeah.
Steve Buscemi.
I don't blame you for thinking that. But it gets another kind of like heartbreaking scene where Mr. White's got shot in the gut. He's not dead yet, but he's dying. And he's like crawling his way to Mr. Orange, who's, I don't know, did Mr. Orange get shot again?
I don't
think
think
he's
so.
dead.
Or he
though.
didn't get shot?
No, not yet.
Okay. Well, he's crawling his way to Mr. Orange, kind of holding him, like he propped him up on his lap. He's holding him, and you hear the cops coming in, surrounding him, and then all of a sudden you hear Mr. Orange say, "I'm a cop.
Yep.
I'm a cop."
Yeah. And you see Mr. White start losing it. He
Yeah.
starts crying and just starts going, no.
And he pulls the
no,
gun up.
and starts putting it to his face and is just like, I
That's
gotta do
tough.
this. I can't not let it happen.
Yeah. And
And-
cops come in, put the
yeah.
gun down, we'll blow you up.
Yeah.
And then you just hear the gunshots. And you
Yep.
think, dang, no one made it
Yep.
except Mr. Pink.
Yep.
Do you think
Great
Mr.
ending.
Pink
Well,
made
even
it?
then, I think Mr. Pink gets arrested.
Yeah, I feel like
Because
Mr.
in
Pink
the
would get
distance,
arrested.
you can hear like, put the diamonds down now, or put the gun down now, and you hear some gunshots, and then you hear him like screaming in pain. So I'm thinking either he got shot and was arrested, or
He was killed.
He
or
made
he
it
was,
out.
he was killed by
Oh, okay.
police. I don't know.
KOA.
Well, interesting. Great way to end the movie. It's
Yeah.
another one of those like nobody won.
Yeah.
Everybody dies. at
nobody
the end.
won, literally.
Yeah.
But it's all very convincing why they die.
Mhm. Definitely.
And it's not just kind of boring by cop standoff.
No.
You know, it's kind of would be easy to kind of put it that way, but they're turning on each other. No one knows who the rat is. Everyone's it's like a great game of mafia.
Yeah.
Where everyone's just great liars and you can't tell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Good movie.
Yeah, seriously. Well, that's it for our favorite scenes. Let's move into best quote. My first favorite quote comes from Mr. Pink whenever he comes back into the warehouse, and he says, "Where's the commode in this dungeon? I gotta take a squirt." I was dying laughing when I heard him say that.
Mm-hmm.
My first one was from Mr. White, and it's when Mr. Orange is in the back of the car getting shot, and you already said it, but it's still one of my favorites. He goes, "Excuse me, I didn't know you have a degree in medicine," and it's super funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mine is from Mr. Pink only because it's like the most logical facts ever. He's like they're at the gun. He's on the floor shooting his gun, pointing his gun at each other, and he goes, "I didn't create this situation. I'm dealing with it. You're acting like a first year effing thief, and I'm acting like a professional."
Yeah.
And I was like, it's so true.
Yeah. This is my last one. I think it's in that same situation where he says, Mr. Pink says, "I don't want to kill anybody, but if I got to get out that door and you're standing in my way, one way or the other, you're getting out of my way."
Mm.
And I like, you could just tell, like, this guy is just, he's there to serve himself. And that really is the way a criminal, I think, should be.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of things, you can't really trust other criminals.
Nope.
So, yeah. Any other best quotes here?
That's it for me.
All right. Well, let's get into some bro moments that we haven't talked about. One for me that we haven't talked about yet is Mr. White revealing his name to Mr. Orange
Yeah.
and telling him that his name is Larry. But Mr. Orange never reveals his name to Mr. White.
Yeah, you can't.
It's kind of
He
dirty.
can't do it.
Yeah.
But it was the situation he brings up to is like, what the was I supposed to do?
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
dying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
One that this is just a bro moment for me was I thought this was a totally different movie. For some reason, I was watching this and I was like, "Why does this?" And it reminded me a lot of Pulp Fiction.
Mm.
And then that's when you guys were like, "Well, this was his first movie."
Yeah.
So I did see. It was just a bro moment because I saw a lot of the similarities for me. Now I was like, "Oh shoot!" I thought I was watching a differently entirely movie. So that's why it's a bro moment.
Well, maybe this could give credence to your idea because Mr. Blonde's real name is Vic Vega. And John Travolta's character's name in Pulp Fiction is Vincent Vega.
yeah.
They're brothers. There was
Same
actually
world.
Yes, there was actually supposed to be. There's a fact here that I'll hit on maybe a little bit later, or I just hit it now. They're in the same universe, and they're actually brothers in that same universe.
What?
And there was supposed to be a movie that Quentin Tarantino wanted to do called Double V Vega, where they were going to come together as like a brother crime duo.
Dude, that'd be so cool.
But eventually, the two, Michael Madsen and John Travolta, they got too old for their roles, and they ended up not being able to do it. So he had to scrap the idea. But yeah, in this universe, they are siblings.
That would be sick. That's so cool.
Yeah. Another bro moment for me was seeing how Mr. Orange gets shot. Whenever
oh yeah, and he didn't it's like almost like he didn't want to shoot her.
Yeah, and he feels bad about it.
Yeah. He shoots her and then he's like
kind of just staring there like, oh, crap, I just killed a civilian
for no reason, and I'm a cop. I'm supposed to be protecting them.
Yeah.
But it's like it's one of those things like it's like when you're a undercover cop situation and they tell you to do drugs. You're like, I can't, but I have to.
Yeah.
It's one of those where it's a rock and a hard place. You just got to do.
Yeah, and the way it happens too, it feels like it was so preventable.
Yeah.
Like they just happened to pick the wrong person to jack a car from.
She
freaking pulled the gun out of the glove box and just popped him in the stomach, and it just happens all so quick.
Yeah.
It's a huge bro moment.
Yeah, bro moment for me was when Mr. White was just shooting the cops through the windshield.
Going
doof, doof. I was like, it was brutal.
Yeah, bloodbath in there, dude.
Absolutely wild.
Yeah.
Mr. Pink driving with the windshield broken.
Yeah, pretty
Oh.
bad.
I was just because he's like, say this is the windshield. He's really like,
Yeah.
how is that possible?
I don't know. What about Mr. Brown being first off Quentin Tarantino?
Yeah.
Second off, being blinded
By his blood and
Yeah.
then dying. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. What about Nice Guy Eddie killing the cop
Yeah.
when he shoots him? He was like,
He was like,
Mr.
he was
Orange was
gonna
like,
burn him.
he was gonna burn him alive and kill the guy, and he was like, oh, what, this cop? I was like, oh, dude, didn't care at all. And
No.
he's just like, oh crap, he's
Tried
dead
to save
now.
him.
Tried to save him, it didn't work. Yeah.
Yeah, wild.
Yeah. Any other bro moments here?
That's it for me.
No, it's all we've talked all we talked about.
All right. Well, let's get into some facts.
Yeah, let me hit you with the budget to make this movie, which I think is kind of wild. It took $1.2 million to make this movie. Opening weekend, it made $147,839,000. Gross U.S. for U.S. and Canada was $2.8 million, and gross worldwide is $2.9 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it made its money. It's not flop.
1.2 million.
1.2.
Okay.
Yeah. In 1992. And you're getting names like Harvey Kettle, which are big names.
Yeah,
big
Tim
actors.
Roth. Well, was he big then?
I don't know if Tim Roth was big. Maybe Steve Buscemi is just coming up around this time.
Oh, okay. I think of Tim Roth as in the Incredible Hulk. It's the
Oh,
only
really?
movie I've seen him in.
Yeah. So it is
Other than, obviously,
a small budget, especially when you take into consideration like how much blood they used in all
Yeah.
this movie and all the, all the people that work on the film
Yeah.
and paying your actors, stuff like that.
Speaking of blood, man, at several points, Tim Roth had to lay in a pool of blood for so long that it dried up.
Yeah.
And they had to come and like scrape it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely wild. It's kind of like paint in that way.
Yeah. Another one that I have here, in regards to the opening scene where they talk about Madonna's song, Like a Virgin, Madonna actually refutes the claim that Quentin Tarantino makes in this movie. And she actually loves the film, which is pretty funny thinking about that, actually. But she ended up giving Quentin Tarantino a copy of her song, Like a Virgin, from the album, I think it's called Erotica. And she signed it and put, to Quentin, it's not about penis, it's about love, Madonna.
She gives him the answer.
Yeah.
Right then and there.
Yeah.
That's funny. I had listened to a review, or not a review, interview with Samuel L. Jackson answering questions, and he actually auditioned for this movie. He was going to be the captain or the guy that Mr. Orange was reporting to.
That would fit so well.
Right?
Like, it feels like they were trying to go for Samuel L. Jackson, but they couldn't get him.
Well, he goes through the interview. He goes through the auditioning process, and he leaves it feeling not too confident about getting it. Of course, he doesn't get it. Well, he meets Quentin Tarantino at Sundance Festival later after watching the movie, and they get to talking. Quentin asks him about his about like, hey, how'd you like the guy who took your spot and all that stuff, and he goes, it was all right, should have been me. And he goes, okay, don't worry, I'm writing a role for you, talking about Pulp Fiction.
That's awesome.
So
Imagine-
cool to see him.
Yeah, come full circle.
Yeah, pretty
that's
sick.
That's so cool.
I feel like that'd be such a cool experience, just having a director be like, oh, don't worry, I'm writing a scene for you. Like,
I'm writing a role just for you.
and it's by perfect.
Like, that's awesome.
hearing that is crazy. Real quick, I just wanted to say, 1.2 million in today's money is 2.6 million.
Wow.
Yeah, so that is low budget.
It
Even the
is.
low budget films, like indie films now, don't even get made for that little.
That's true.
And that's a low budget for Quentin, for sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he only would get bigger.
Yeah, to hit on different actors real quick. Nicolas Cage was considered for the role of Nice Guy Eddie.
Really? I think that would be kind of funny, actually. Like seeing him be over the top, you know, like when Chris Penn kind of gets ramped up, you know, and he starts saying, like, I'm thinking of whenever he was like, this guy will tell you he's wearing ladies' underwear, and that doesn't necessarily make it so. You know, like
He's like getting.
seeing Nicolas Cage do that, I think would be great.
You think he could do it?
I don't know. I just think of Nicolas Cage, and I just immediately think of National Treasure, and it's cringe.
I think a Ghost Rider when he's going. Yeah, I just can't.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't
Yeah.
know.
You said a National Treasure, and now I'm thinking of him being like, still Declaration of Independence. Wait a minute. There's got to be a clue. There's a clue.
Clue.
Yeah, just something always like that, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Speaking of casting what ifs.
Oh no. Who else?
Quentin Tarantino was originally going to play Mr. Pink.
Really?
Really?
Steve
Yeah.
Buscemi?
Yes, but
Wow.
he eventually decided to let Steve Buscemi take the part because whenever he came in to read for it, Tarantino had told Buscemi that he really wanted Mr. Pink for himself, but Buscemi said that, you know, he just felt that he was right for the part. And then Tarantino went on to say the only way Buscemi could possibly wrestle it out of him was for a killer audition. And Buscemi
that's what he got.
Yeah, Buscemi killed it. And he eventually decided that he was going to play Mr. Brown, which I think kind of works out in that aspect because Mr. Brown's like not too heavy of a character.
He's
you
got
know?
a
He's
couple
just kind of like
scenes.
a cameo.
Yeah.
You know? But
Yeah. Imagine like, I don't know. It's kind of weird to think of like you're the head director and you're also the lead or one of the most like important characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's not. I think it's nice that he gave it to him for 100% because
Yeah.
how you said, if you're the director and the lead, that doesn't give anybody else to shine. You
Yeah.
know?
It just feels kind of. I don't know. I don't want to say you can't do it.
Yeah,
But it's almost just
there are
like-
definitely areas or certain films where it's done and it's done correctly.
Yeah.
But I do think he made the right decision.
As just a minor role.
Yeah.
He recognized Steve Buscemi's
the better person
Yeah.
overall better part
Yeah.
of that Mr.
for
Pink.
that. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Another one actually, in regards to the small budget, the budget wouldn't cover police assistance for traffic control. So in the scene where Steve Buscemi forces a woman out of her car and drives off into it, he could only do that scene whenever the traffic lights were green. So like they had to wait for the green lights to actually
Just
happen,
going-
so that way they could actually film it and then him get in the car and drive it off. Yeah.
Kind of crazy. One thing that I thought was kind of crazy too was the final print for this film didn't come back from the lab until 3 days before its world premiere at the Sundance Film Festival. 3 days.
That's cutting it close.
Don't you feel like? I feel like you gotta have at least a week or two before.
Yeah, because you gotta
Make
I
sure
mean,
it runs.
even then too, you never know if you want to make another cut or something like that. All that stuff.
That's absolutely
3 days, bruh.
Yeah. Another one I thought was pretty crazy actually was, according to an interview that's on the physical copies of the discs in the bonus feature stuff. Michael Madsen, the guy that plays Mr. Blonde, he had said that Kirk Baltz, the guy who plays the cop, had asked to ride in his trunk to experience what it's really like. So Michael Madsen agreed, but decided as he went along that this was time for his own character development as well. So he drove with this guy in his trunk through a long alley with tons of potholes and then took him through a Taco Bell drive-thru before taking Baltz back to the parking lot and then letting him out.
What the heck?
So he tried to get a little bit of character development in as well as the cop. So that was pretty funny.
Pretty good.
Yeah. The only other thing that I have that I did mention before we started recording was the opening scene in the coffee shop contains a little bit of foreshadowing, like I'd said, whenever Mr. Pink convinces Mr. Orange to try to take his tip back, right? And Joe comes in and says, I'm a buck short. Who didn't tip? Who is the guy that snitches on Mr. Pink? It's Mr. Orange.
Mr. Orange.
This is a little bit of subtle foreshadowing as to who is the rat, because he, of course, is the guy to snitch him out, right? He's the cop.
Oh, I had also read a fact too where it's when funny guy Eddie is on the phone talking to the boss, and in the background of the car you see like an orange balloon being dragged along.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was a whole controversy of it's intentional, it's Mr. Orange.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Quentin says no, it was an accident.
Yeah, I saw something like that.
Yeah, because I was on Film Grab, and I always like when we're talking about the film to look at the
Get some
stills.
visuals, yeah.
And there is that picture of the car driving away with the balloon.
Is
and
it an orange balloon?
It's an orange balloon. And
Ah.
I now that you mention it, I was just like, oh.
Is it intentional?
Yeah,
It
Apparently
almost
not.
makes it seem like it is.
yeah.
Apparently not.
But yeah, that's about it for facts for me.
That's it for me.
That's it as well.
All right. What didn't work for this movie?
This is just me personally. I wish I saw this one first before. Pulp Fiction, because I thought this movie was Pulp Fiction. Watching it,
Okay, how so? Like just
I just saw a lot of comparison, like similarities. Like when I saw all the suits, I was like, oh, okay. For some reason, I thought I was going to see Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta. When I see, Mr. Orange shot in the back, I was like, oh wait, I feel like I've seen this before. And it again, Pulp Fiction, when he's in the back of the car and shoots him, right?
oh yeah, he shoots the guy in the head.
Like
That's crazy.
Plasters his head to the back windshield.
All over.
And I was just like, oh shoot, like, it made me think a lot of Pulp Fiction. I think it's just on me.
Mm.
So I kind of just wish I watched this one before Pulp Fiction.
Mm.
Okay.
So the only thing I was gonna bring up, not that it doesn't work, but it's kind of like, why? The cops like mannerisms as he's on the chair going,
Yeah.
like I know he's trying to show his pain, but there's a point where I'm just like, you're doing a lot, bro.
Overacting.
You're doing a lot, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I just thought it was funny,
Okay.
but there was a point where I was like, that's a lot.
Okay.
So
All right. Anything else? I don't have anything.
there's
For what
not very
doesn't
much.
work.
I mean, it's kind of oh yeah, the orange balloon. There it is.
Everything does kind of work in this movie for
Yeah,
me.
it's pretty streamlined as well.
Okay. Well, if that's it for what doesn't work, what does work for this movie?
Yeah, I just think a big thing is the structure of it. I love that it's not linear. I
Mhm.
love that you get these real kind of intimate scenes, and then they're broken up like we were talking about earlier with a lot of action, a lot of tension.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a lot of layers that go on that keeps you engaged.
Yeah.
I just think it's absolutely perfect how he sets this up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think kind of hitting off what you're talking about, Nick, the script is just awesome.
It has
Like-
to. I mean, the script is incredible.
It is. And the movie is so deceptively simple. Like, it is a heist that goes wrong, and it takes place the majority of the film in one static location.
Mm-hmm.
But the writing for this movie is just so intriguing and so compelling that I'm not looking away.
Mhm.
And I'm so interested to see, like, who makes it out of this alive, why characters do what they do, what their motivations are, you know, why they get to the point that they do,
Mhm.
and all this stuff. And I just think that, you know, Quentin Tarantino has just such a talent for writing really great characters, and like can really just dive into who this person is, what their motivations are, why they did what they did, what their thought process is, all this stuff, right? And just can really flesh it out, and then find actors to really execute your idea in such a unique way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the script is just awesome. And I have to say too, I love the use of like code names
Orange,
as well, where
pink.
like they don't tell anybody your actual like government name.
Yeah.
It's all like Mr. Orange, Mr. Pink, Mr. Brown.
And then speaking of variety too, the guys are like, I don't want to be Mr. Pink.
Yeah.
Mr. Brown, that kind of sounds like Mr. Crap.
Yeah,
Like, it just
like, and they seem so incredibly human.
It
like
is.
I could see some guys being like, I don't want to do that. I want to be Mr. Black.
Yeah.
And you know, Joe's like, I'm not letting you pick your own colors because every one of you guys is gonna fight to be Mr. Black, and none of you guys know each other. So there's going to be a whole, stare down contest, and
Yeah.
eventually someone's going to get killed because they want to be Mr. Black.
Stupid.
All that stuff.
It's just real, incredibly genuine. Love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Also, acting here is great. Steve Buscemi,
Phenomenal.
Dude, Steve Buscemi
Phenomenal.
kills it.
Harvey Keitel, phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Roth, awesome.
I believe he shot.
Yeah, like everyone in this movie just does such a good job with the screen time that they're given.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, for me, incredible soundtrack.
Oh, yeah, I knew you'd bring that up.
I think this is an iconic soundtrack.
Oh yeah,
I think it's the same with Pulp Fiction. It's an
Yeah.
iconic soundtrack.
yeah. Like I can always count on Quentin Tarantino to just have the perfect music
Mhm.
for his movies every time.
There's always
Yeah, I
line
read
up.
that there were actually what I think I have the fact that I didn't actually say it was, there is no like actual sound to this. Like, there's no actual soundtrack to this film. It's all music. Like,
Oh, do you mean like orchestral?
Yeah,
Like
there's
like,
no
like,
orchestral
like symphony or anything
sound,
like that.
it's
It's just
all-
all recorded.
it's all recorded audio.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
No.
All right. Who wins this movie?
I said Steve Buscemi.
Mr. Pink.
Me too.
I love him.
He's awesome in this movie.
Yeah.
I think he really steals the show here.
Yeah, if not him, then Tim Roth. Second. He's a close second for
Mr.
me.
Orange, right?
Definitely.
Mr. Orange.
Yeah. All right. What are some themes for this movie?
This is one. Was hard for me. I was wondering. Maybe I'll ask you this: does the title have anything to do with a deeper theme? Reservoir Dog.
So I had read something on the internet where Quentin had heard the term Reservoir Dogs, and it kind of means that like it's supposed to invoke a picture of a ton of dogs or a pack of dogs trapped at a reservoir, and each one of them trying to climb on top of one another to fight to get out of the reservoir. And so it's Reservoir Dogs is supposed to invoke this picture of this pack of criminals trying to come out on top. You know?
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of where what the name is supposed to mean. So I think like whenever I'm thinking of a theme, obviously like, you can't trust nobody. Like if a criminal should trust no one type stuff. But also like just themes of like greed and where it gets you. And, typical stuff like that,
Yeah.
like that you would find in a Tarantino film, violence, a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah. I don't know if
Yeah.
there's more of like a deeper.
Yeah, I don't either. I think it would go. He would later explore like deeper meanings and themes in his later films. I think for this one is just purely fun and like entertainment, a great story.
Yeah,
Like-
and I agree with you actually on that one because it's his first film,
Yeah,
and I think maybe what I'm just gonna say what he was probably thinking was like, I'm gonna make a film that I want, that I like,
Mhm.
and then see what people like from there, and then do it for the people. 'Cause
Right.
I feel like he makes films for the people.
right. And then I mean, like, take a look at like his most recent film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That whole movie has, themes of just being rejected by the people that once loved you.
Mhm.
Being the fall guy and learning that Hollywood is going to move on without you. It really dives into deeper character meanings and philosophical questions that people have to deal with all the time. And
Mhm.
I think he would only go on to really kind of write more about that stuff as he progressed in his director writer stage and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
That's
All right.
a wrap.
if there's no other themes, what are we rating this? I'll start us off.
Okay.
I'm going to give this a 9. I think it's great. Pulp
Pretty.
Fiction is a 10 for me. This is like great. It's not as good as Pulp Fiction, so therefore I'm going to give that one a 9.
Okay. I'm going to have to give this one a 8.
Yeah, I gave it an 8 as well.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just overall fantastic. If you can get past the violence and stuff, I think it's a recommend easily.
All right. All right. Well, if you stuck all the way to the end of the episode, we appreciate you. Again, leave us a like, comment on the videos on YouTube if you're watching there, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to the audio platforms, rate and review the show, and subscribe to the show there as well. If you want to get in contact with us on a not-so-public platform, hit the episode descriptions, and we got our Instagram, our Letterboxd accounts, and our email linked there. So if you want to reach out there, you can do that. But other than that, we are going to go ahead and reveal the next pick for next week, which is Nick's pick.
It is. I'm going to go out on a limb, a movie I've only heard very little about. I'm going to go with the 1967 film, The Graduate.
Okay.
Now, this movie had been described to me in one way, and I don't know if it's real or true or whatever, but they described it as The Chase. It's about a kid who is chasing after, I think, a teacher.
Okay.
And then they described it as like, it's all about the chase, and when you have what you want, that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for the chase, not the destination.
For the adrenaline of what it is that you're seeking.
Exactly.
But then when you get it, it's kind of like, oh, that sucked.
So I'm not sure what to expect other than I think it's good. I mean,
yeah, I have heard nothing but great things about The Graduate. This is a first watch for me.
okay.
I've never even heard of it.
Oh,
wow.
it's going to be a first watch for all of us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's Dustin Hoffman.
It
You
is.
know,
I
you
don't know
can't
who
go
that
wrong
is.
with him. So I'm excited. This has been on my list for such a long time.
Yeah.
My little brother has watched it before me.
Really?
Yeah, but to his credit, he had to watch it for film class. So it was kind of like a requirement. It wasn't like he like sought it
Wanted
out
to.
on his own and watched it on his own. But
Right.
he ended up saying he really liked it, which is, it's kind of inspiring
Yeah.
to know that he liked it, because I can only hope that I will as well. So
Okay, well, if you want to watch it, it is currently on Amazon Prime.
okay,
And you said Pluto as well?
Pluto TV, I saw.
Pluto TV. And I think those are the only two places. So if you got those, enjoy it there. Otherwise, be like me and rent it.
All
Because
right.
I don't have any of those, I don't think.
All right.
So
Well, you guys heard it. Tune back in next week to hear what we have to say about The Graduate. As always, this has been the Film Bros Podcast. Thank you, and good night.
Good night.
good night.